Two guys get shipwrecked on a desert island. And one of them's just flipping out. He's running up and down. He's going, oh my God, we're going to die. We're going to die. There's no food. There's no water. We're going to die. The other guy's just sitting there calm as silk. And finally, the one guy looks at him and goes, how can you be so calm? We're here. We're stuck here. We're going to die. Guy goes, I make $100,000 a week. The other guy goes, what are you talking about? We're on a desert island. How is that going to help now? Guy goes, you don't get it. I tithe. My minister will find me. The craft of creation. So, my relationship with creation started pretty early in life, no pun intended, because I started writing poetry in the first grade. In the second grade, I wrote a play based on a Western that then I got my friends involved with. I directed it, and we actually sold tickets and wound up performing it. But then somewhere after that, I stopped my artistic creative process until I wound up about 17 when I picked up the guitar and started writing songs, and then did that for a really long time. The thing about it was, everything I thought about creation at that point either had to do with a God outside myself or had to do with the arts. You know, writing a play, writing a song, painting a picture, that's what creating was. That it wasn't until I found the science of mind that I finally started realizing that creation was actually everything and that my life was a work of art. That all our lives are a work of art, and in that we're creating. Now, one of the things, because I had been creating art, particularly through music, I was able to bring to the science of mind was how to create. And what I mean by that is that when you write a song, when I write a song, it really takes getting out of my way. If I want to write something I've never written before, if I want to go to a place and come up with something that I never created before in my life, the first thing I had to do was get out of my way. Now, this woman wrote a book called The Artist's Way. And it's this incredible book that has all these exercises in it that are how to get out of your way to create what you want to create in the world. It wasn't until I was in Science of Mind, it even took, it wasn't like I came into Science of Mind and all of a sudden my mind went, oh, poof, I can apply this here. It took a while for it to sink in that actually that's how this works. That's how creating anything in our lives works. We got to get out of our way. That it's the exact same process as writing a song, writing a play, painting a picture. The process is exactly the same. You got to get out of your way, or whatever you produce is going to be something you've actually produced before. Ernest Holmes has something to say about this, like you might think. If man takes his images of thought only from his previous experiences, then he continues in the bondage which those previous experiences create. If we talk about discord, we shall become more discordant. The more the world arms for war, the more certain it is that there will be war. People who spend all their time talking about their unhappiness become more unhappy. Jesus understood these great laws of cause and effect in the universe, which work sometimes with apparent slowness, but always with sureness. Eventually, we shall understand that all human bondage is an invention of ignorance. Is an invention of ignorance. So, what is ignorance, right? It's thinking, ignorance shows up in many different ways. It can show up as simply not knowing how to play, right? The first time I picked up a guitar, I did not know how to play it. Now, here's the funny part about people I talk to about life. Somehow, a lot of people think that they should have simply been born knowing how to create a great life. That it doesn't take any practice. They should have simply been born with it, and then are really pissed off when things, when they don't get it right. Mostly at themselves, right? This is how we get into the idea of beating ourselves up, is we get into beating ourselves up because we think we ought to know something that actually maybe we shouldn't. Maybe it takes time to learn it. One of the more interesting things is that I have never, ever seen a baby frustrated when they try to learn to walk. They have zero frustration about it. They try, they fall, they try, they fall, they try, they fall until they walk. Check it. And I've gotten an opportunity to see this quite a few times in my life, and it dawned on me that they're never frustrated. So that means that frustrating is something we learn. We're not born with the idea that we can be frustrated. We're born with the idea that you just keep practicing. So if we're getting frustrated, we learned that. You know what that means? You know what's so cool about that? We can unlearn it. That is what's so cool. So when we feel frustrated, it's because we think we are already good at something that maybe we simply need to practice more at. Like playing the guitar, like I was saying. So I'm playing the guitar, and I want to master a new riff on the guitar. I want to master a new pattern and get it down just right. And it takes time. It's not like the first time I pick up the guitar and I'm like going, and all of a sudden, boom, 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 I get it. No, got to practice it again, over and over and over and over. Itzhak Perlman, the greatest violinist of our time, said that if I don't practice one day, I notice. If I don't practice 2 days, my wife notices. If I don't practice 3 days, the audience notices. I mean, here he was at the top of his game, still all about practicing every single day. So what makes us think that creating our lives, being master of the craft of creation of our lives, would take anything less than that kind of dedication? I think of our ability to create our lives like being an Olympic gold medalist. They practice 10,000 hours or more. How many hours have we practiced in the art of creating our lives specifically, applying that art? Eric, if I had picked up the guitar and thought that the very first time I was going to play as good as Clapton, I would have driven myself crazy. Eric Clapton was one of the first people to put forth the word woodshedding, because he went into a literal woodshed for 2 years, practicing over 8 hours a day before he ever came out to try playing in his first band, which, worked out pretty good for him. So that's what's possible when we actually go in and, take the classes. The other thing is, there's a whole theory behind what we do here, right? Who here could pick up a sheet of music and simply read it if you've never taken music theory? So there's a whole thing in the arts that is totally known and understandable if you want to be a great painter, if you want to be a great musician, that somehow doesn't fully translate into the art of creating life. And I am here to present to you that that's what we need to do. We need to look at what I'm offering you today is the idea of looking at creating your life like a piece of art, and thereby approaching it wanting to learn all the tools you would want to learn out of any art. Mastering and practicing like you would the guitar, painting, writing. You know, they always talk about writing is in the rewriting. So I offer that to you today. The idea that that is what we're here to do, to treat our lives like a piece of art. I'm pretty sure I'm up to my next quote. When we use our creative imagination and strong faith, it will create for us out of the one substance whatever we have embodied. Now, anybody who plays an instrument knows that at some point your body learns it, like my body goes to certain chords without me even thinking about it. I never have to think about how to play a D chord. It doesn't even dawn on me. I see I'm going to a D next, my fingers just go there. That's the level of embodiment that we're talking about that you want to have when you're creating your life. That level of embodiment where, boom, it just happens. How do you get there? Practice, practice, practice. How do we practice here? We take classes and we do science of mind treatment. We do this treatment. We do it over and over and over. And we do it so often that it actually becomes the default. One of the beautiful parts that I have noticed for myself, now that I've been doing this almost 25 years, is that finally, when some things start not going well in my life, I default to treatment. I default to, okay, it's time for me to start knowing the truth because right now I'm upset. Right now, I'm not doing so well, so it's time to lift it up, to move to that place of practice. Because don't we want to do that? Have those, Olympic gold medal spiritual muscles, where that's the default. That's where we go. Another quote. Whoop. We do assert that a prolonged discordant mental health state is certain to eventuate in some form of physical ailment. People have died of great grief, of broken hearts, of outbursts of temper, of deep and continued resentment, of excessive worry, and many other mental states in which there was no specific thought of sickness at all. The point to remember is that all mind activity inevitably tends to create its physical correspondent. So here's where the analogy with guitar breaks down. If you never master the guitar, it may not be yours to do. But mastering your life, how could that not be yours to do? Because that's the problem with not mastering your life, is all of a sudden you have physical ailments and you don't know how they got there. All of a sudden, things are going downhill in a way and you don't know how that happened. We are either creating consciously or unconsciously. But the one thing we are doing every single moment of every single day is creating. So this is why practice, not so much the guitar, but our lives, becomes so important. Because either we're going to get a hold of this, either we're going to awaken to the true power that is ours to have, or we're going to think we're a victim to something that's happening to us. Right? That's how it winds up feeling. Either you feel like a victim. So the thing about creating, the craft of creation, is the level of responsibility you need to take on. And it's a lot. It's a lot to imagine that all the things you might feel victimized by, you actually have the creative control over. Now, I want to use that word control very carefully, because it's not as if we can control circumstance, but we can control outcome by our knowingness and by our willingness to embody what the real truth is, not the circumstance that is before our eyes. Now, I'm not saying that we're not up against race consciousness. We're not up against all these other folks who say that there are victims in this world. And that's what makes this teaching not so much for the faint of heart. That's what makes this teaching about rising up beyond what you think you see and experience, and being willing to question it, like time. Time is not a continuum, and yet we experience it that way. This is why we're born young, we grow old, and then we die. We can feel it and experience it that way, but there's so much more going on, because if there wasn't, miracles wouldn't be possible. There is no way in a continuum of time a tumor the size of an orange disappears in a day, and yet it happens. So it's happening outside the continuum. So is every other creative process going on. Every time a new work of art is made, it is coming from a place outside of time. That means every miracle that we can have and create in our own lives is coming from outside time, coming from some other dimension that we may or may not understand, and it doesn't even matter if we understand it. What matters is that we can use it. We can use it by our focus, by our willingness to practice, and by moving forward in the power of knowing that it exists. Last quote from Ernest. Nothing can hinder a man who knows that he is dealing with the one power that creates all from itself, moves all within itself, and yet holds everything in its place. One infinite mind, one with the personality of God. Each of us has the personality of God in our own uniqueness. Each of us is a work of art. Each of us is in a loving process of bringing forth that art which is ours to do. I know this for you. I know this for you on the deepest of levels, that each one of you is a work of art. Come forth and let's play with this together. Let us create together. Let us bring out that wonderful uniqueness that is you. Thank you. All right, take out what you're going to give. Hold it in your hand. Unrumple it. Take it out. Hold it, because it too is God. It too is power. It too creates a circulation that returns to you multiplied abundantly. We have the law of circulation that's going on all the time. The more you give, the more you receive. This is about how we give, how we receive, how we create in our lives. This is part of the art of the craft of creating right here and right now. You can participate in it in this way. Hold it in your hand, knowing this is God too, and repeat after me. God is the source of all supply. Where'd it go? Please put it back. There we go. God is the source of all supply. Money is God in action. What we give, we receive multiplied abundantly. All that God is, I am. And so it is.
You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God. You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God. You are the face of God.
Tu es l'image de Dieu.
I hold you